Welcome back to the state-sponsored conspiracy podcast. This is the only podcast that receives government funding. Your tax dollars have already paid for this, so you might as well just get in here and listen.
We're not the only one. We're just the only public one.
Yeah, that's vague enough that you haven't burned anyone, but I do think we should keep that under wraps.
Okay.
We do use code names to protect our identities, kind of like how cops in Mexico have like masks. This episode, you will be Future Trunks, and that is because this is a time travel episode. Now, my code name will be Meatball, because I could not come up with another good time travel one.
Are you kidding me?
These are not open for debate. We are continuing on.
All right.
Time travel, it turns out. Now, this isn't exactly a conspiracy per se, although we will get into some more conspiratorial things towards the end.
Let me just say right off the bat, time travel is real. I think we're allowed to say that. If we're not, then, I'll just travel back in time and edit this out.
You might have to travel back in time.
Well, I think we'll check after the episode if we are allowed to say it's real. If it's not, then bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, we'll check. This can all be fixed in post. I thought I would start with a few smaller time travel tales or hoaxes, whatever you'd like to call them, and then I'll work up to the bigger and crazier ones towards the end.
I'm actually from the future, and I know the first one that you're going to talk about is John Titor.
That is incorrect.
Damn.
Although I will absolutely be getting to that a little bit later on.
That's the only one I know about.
That's one of the best. I will say that. But there's basically a whole genre of these conspiracies where it's just a picture of someone looking modern in an old-timey photo, or someone holding something that looks like a phone. And then everyone comes in and says, this is a time traveler. We have caught a time traveler on video here.
Or like somebody in a photograph who looks like a celebrity, like, whoa, this guy from the 1492 in the painting, he looks like Keanu Reeves. He's immortal, or a time traveler, or both.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing. So the most famous one is there's a video of a lady walking to a showing of one of Charlie Chaplin's latest films, that was a must-see movie at the time. And she's holding up a black rectangle to her ear. And so everyone says this is clearly her using a smartphone. But it is too low res, because it's like ye olden black and white pictures. It's too low res to really figure out what she's actually doing. But the best guess is that it's some sort of hearing aid that they had back then, or a radio of some sort.
My guess is it's probably a hot day, and she's holding an ice cream sandwich up against her head to cool her down.
Now I want to know if they had ice cream sandwiches in the 1920s.
I think it's better if we don't know. I think it's better if we just believe.
You don't want to be burdened with too much knowledge.
It's just a cross I don't think we can bear.
You might be right. Now, probably the most famous one of these pictures is commonly known as the time-traveling hipster, where basically you have this picture from the 50s of a crowd, and there's a guy who looks like he could have stepped right out of, 2023. He has modern-looking sunglasses. He has what appears to be like a graphic t-shirt, and he has like a sweater on. And so everyone says, this has got to be a time traveler. My favorite one, though, there was a guy in the crowd of a Mike Tyson fight back in the 90s or the 80s. Can't remember. But it looks like he's holding up his phone and like taking a video of the fight. And if you go on YouTube, you can watch Mike Tyson actually like reacting to this, and it's pretty funny.
I thought you were gonna say you can go to YouTube and see the fight recorded back in time.
That well, it's fake though, because
it's fake, but it is on YouTube. So
yeah, it's fake, but you can watch it if you want. No, it's Mike Tyson on his podcast, and like some other people on the podcast are like saying it's like real. They're like, damn, like that guy has an iPhone. But Mike Tyson himself is like laughing it off. He's like, no, this is a guy with like a camcorder. Because Mike Tyson is not crazy anymore. He's like fully come back down to earth.
I mean, he's one of ours, right?
We can't say that.
Edit this out, future me. He's one of our agents.
We'll fix that in post. But what's there's like what I really think about with all these like pictures is like a cell phone. Everyone says cell phone, but a cell phone would not work if you brought it into the past because there's no cell towers.
I mean, only if you're calling.
No, because how would... Wait a minute. How would you get a call?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about a guy bringing a phone back in time to record a Mike Tyson fight, that doesn't need cell service.
You're right. Now you're right. That's an instance where bringing a phone back in time would actually make sense.
If we're talking about back in time calling, then we're looking at a supernatural or time-space fluctuation event. It occurs sometimes in some K-dramas I watch. There's one called Signal. There's another one. They're usually about police walkie-talkies calling back in time, and so they solve two murders at once, one in the past and one in the future. This has nothing to do with what we were talking about, but go ahead.
But I have heard of that show, actually. The Signal. It's like the biggest show in South Korea, right?
I mean, at one point, I guess.
Yeah. Now, if I was going back in time, I would bring a gun, not a cell phone.
They had guns.
On Signal?
Yeah, they're cops.
No, but I'm saying if I went back in time, I would bring a gun.
Yeah, they had guns back in time.
But then, like, you might not be able to get one. Like, what if they want, like, your ID, and then you show them your ID, and they're like, what, you're from the future? And they kidnap you and, like, do stuff to you.
Hold on, are you time traveling in a different country? Because in America, they wouldn't do that. It's land of the free. Land of the free, home of the brave, land of the AR-15, home of kids in the grave.
I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here with this gun scenario, but my basic point is that the headline here is it doesn't make sense to bring a cell phone back in time before cell towers existed.
Hold on, if you're traveling back in time, are you really like, oh, hold on, let me leave my cell phone here? It's just gonna be in your pocket. You're just gonna have your phone with you. I think you're just roasting these time travelers for no reason. If you traveled back in time, you'd have your cell phone too. Not because you took it on purpose. It's just like, oh yeah, my cell phone's in my pocket at all times anyways.
Okay, you know what? I kind of see what you're saying. And maybe they take it out like instinctively. They're like, oh, let me look something up. Oh shoot, I have no internet because it's 1925.
And another thing, everybody knows that cell phone signals, they are time agnostic. They can travel through time. You don't need cell service if you're from the time that cell service exists in. How do you not get that?
See, in my time travel research, I did not see anything like that.
Well, like I said, I'm from the future. I know this stuff. You don't.
Here's the last thing I'll say about this, because this is related to this. Every episode of Doctor Who would be 5 minutes long if he just brought a gun with him.
He stopped doing that in the new version of the show. I guess it's not new anymore. It's like 20 years old now.
Yeah, but like every episode could be solved with him having a gun, because he always basically runs right into like the main bad guy. And then he has to like, do a backflip and be like, oh my god, it's the Flimby Flams. They've got me again. And then he has to like unlock something with the screwdriver when he could shoot them.
I don't know. Hold on. I don't know why you're saying like, oh no, Flimpy Flams. We both know that we are like big Doctor Who fans and we've watched countless hours of it. You don't pretend like you don't know anything about the show besides stupid alien names, okay?
All right. I'm not going to pretend like
you're a nerd.
I was in middle school and I was in high school. I was not watching all that early Doctor Who. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't do that.
Just go ahead and say that the Doctor could shoot a weeping angel and that would be tight, okay?
That is correct. I will also say, actually, we can't talk about pop culture. Our boss is going to get pissed off again.
Our boss is still missing. Who cares?
Which is concerning in its own way.
We're still getting paid. We're still the government money is still rolling in. I don't care.
You're right. I'm not too worried about it right now. We might run into some problems later, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Anyway, let's move on to some slightly more advanced time travel tales that have a little bit more lore to them. There is a man called Rudolph Fentz, and the story goes.
That's a stupid name.
You wouldn't want to be called Rudolph Fentz?
I don't know. Anyways, go ahead.
In 1951, according to the story, he was hit by a car. And so the crowd comes over to him, and he has like 1800s clothes on. And so everyone is all like, it's a big mystery. And so the police, they search all his clothes. And at first they think, well, maybe because he was from the 1800s, he just didn't know what cars were, and that's why he got hit by the car. But then the real reason was because he didn't know that in New York, when you cross the street, you're supposed to say, "Hey, I'm walking here." And so he didn't know, and so a car just totally blasted him. Then the cops go into the records, and a man named Rudolph Fentz went missing in 1876 and disappeared without a trace.
I think that's a made-up story.
Well, correct. It turns out this became like a sort of an urban legend, but it's actually just from a short story called "I'm Scared." It's just a little sci-fi tale.
I don't even know if I'd read that. That sounded really boring.
It does actually. It's kind of boring, and it doesn't really go anywhere. Which leads us actually into the next one, which was in 1911. Two French women named Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain. They said that they traveled through time, kind of. They were visiting...
Kind of. We're all kind of traveling through time.
Okay, fair point. I will elaborate. They were on a tour of the Palace of Versailles, as you do when you're a French woman at the time.
When in France, do as the French women do.
Exactly. And they went off, they broke away from the tour a little bit to walk into this room. And they said that it was as if they had stepped back in time. They suddenly saw the room as it would have been in the time of Marie Antoinette. And then she was there. She came in and was walking around in her wig and whatever. And they wrote a book about this experience that was just titled An Adventure, which is like the most hilariously old-timey book name ever. An Adventure.
An Adventure.
This was a book that was published and like made waves. Like it became like a big thing. And what's even funnier to me is that people at the time were like analyzing this in like a serious way. And one of the things people said were just, well, these two people, Charlotte and Eleanor, they're just gay. They're two gay lesbians having...
Oh!
They're just having like hysterical gay delusions. And that's why they've written this whole book.
So is that the first use of fake and gay?
I believe so. Over 100 years ago, someone called them fake and gay.
Damn.
And I think this could become a sort of bizarrely specific gay stereotype, that gay people have delusions of time travel. Like how people will say that gay people don't have driver's license.
What? I've never heard that stereotype in my life.
It's a thing, yeah.
No, you just made that one up. I didn't know this was an episode about the Mandela effect, okay?
I'm 80% sure that, not that this is a real phenomena, but that this is a real stereotype. Anyway, this one is more modern and also funnier to me. Have you heard of the Man from Torrid?
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a time travel tale though.
Oh, it is. So in 1954, according to the story, a guy arrives in Tokyo with a passport from a country called Torrid, which does not exist. He has all these visas and things, and it looks like he's been to Tokyo many times. And he's been all over the world, and he acts confused. He's like, what? I've been here loads of times. What do you mean Torrid isn't real? Like, what are you talking about? And so the Japanese police, with their no guns and their like cool little hats. They take him away, and he's never seen from again. And it turns out this is actually based on a real thing that happened, but it was just a guy using a fake passport from a country that didn't exist to try to travel to Japan.
Now I've heard this story before. I don't remember the detail about him having been in Tokyo when this happened. I thought he was in like Britain or America or something. But I don't know. I feel like it's kind of funny if it's in Tokyo because maybe they just legitimately did not like understand him or like could read the passport properly.
That is funny. They're just like, "What? Like, what are you saying?" But I think what's funny to me is like his scam like worked previous times. Like he had used this successfully in the past, which really just goes to show how easy it was to commit fraud in boomer times. You could just have a passport and just say, "Oh, I'm from Narnia." And you could get into foreign countries. That's how easy it was to be a scammer back in the day. And if someone found you out, you just move. There's no internet. You just leave and go to another town and start over.
You could murder somebody just as easily. I mean, you could rob a bank too. I mean, if you get away within like 2 hours of committing a serious, heinous crime, and yeah, I mean, you're good.
It was an incredible time. Now, of course, everything you do, it goes into a permanent database somewhere that's probably it's somewhere in our office. And then if you try to just run an innocent scam like pretending to be from Narnia or Torrid, you were executed.
I've been reading some of our listeners' files, and I gotta say, you guys are you're kind of squares. You guys don't really commit a whole lot of scams or crimes, which I guess on behalf of the U.S. government, I should say thank you, but also as a Zoomer, you're boring, Grandpa.
I agree with that. It's interesting. You know that like I saw a poll. It's kind of a tangent, but I saw a poll that said like Zoomers are much more averse to like dangerous or like risky like physical behavior. It doesn't really have anything to do with time travel.
I mean, time travel is kind of risky.
That's true. Zoomers would probably be less willing to travel through time.
I feel like it's probably really easy to break your arm if time travel goes wrong.
You just fall.
I have a question I'm gonna save for later. I hope I don't forget it. It's a real advanced time travel question.
I hope I can answer it. We have now arrived at the aforementioned John Titor.
Or Donald Trump.
Oh, we're getting to that later. But what I was speaking to someone about this earlier today. And I was talking about this. And I said, like, do people know about John Titor? Because I don't want to just be going over something that everyone's already heard of. And they told me, they said, Meatball, I don't think most people have ever heard of John Titor at all. And I realized that a lot of this stuff is actually, it's not obscure by like internet weirdo standards, but it is obscure by general standards. And the average person has absolutely not heard of John Titor.
Yeah. I mean, I could have told you that. We're kind of terminally online.
Now, the story of John Titor, I'm gonna say Titor because it sounds cool.
I think it's Titor. So John Titor.
Oh, that does sound right. Titor.
Yeah.
Can I call him John?
Just call him JT.
JT. Now I'm just gonna think of Justin Timberlake.
Call him Mr. Timberlake.
Justin Timberlake. This took place in the early 2000s. So you have to keep that in mind. This all took place on the internet in the early 2000s.
It was a different time.
People didn't know that you could just go on the internet and lie. Exhibit B, the Blair Witch Project. Boomers thought the Blair Witch Project was a real documentary because they didn't understand that anyone can go on the internet and blatantly lie their ass off.
Wait, that's fake? Damn.
I'm sorry to ruin the Blair Witch Project for you. I am sorry about that. So basically, what John Titor was he was a guy who went on. I believe most of his posts were on the old Coast to Coast forums, and he claimed that he was a time traveler from the future who had come back to the past because he needed specific information about a computer model that was needed to solve a coding issue in the future. So he had to come back in time to physically get one that he would take back. And he said that he'd stopped off in early 2000s Florida so that he could visit basically ancestors of his. Like he could talk to his ye olden family for whatever reason. He didn't really say exactly who he was meeting because that was personal. But he made all these predictions and such that you can look up. And he made a couple wrong predictions, which may cast some doubt on the idea that he was a real time traveler. For instance, he said that in 2015, we have passed that year. He said in 2015, there would be a nuclear World War III and a massive civil war in the United States. Now, that did not happen.
Yeah, I'm not really remembering that, so...
Now, he also went out of his way to specifically say, quote, as a result of the many conflicts, no, there were no official Olympics after 2004. However, it appears they may be revived in 2040.
There's been a lot of Olympics since then.
There have been. And what's funny to me about that is, like, if there was a nuclear holocaust and a balkanization of the United States, why would anyone care about the Olympics? Like who is sitting around at that point saying, like, man, you know what we really need to get our country back together now that large parts of it are Chernobyl? We need to bring back the Olympics. We need to get the high jump going again.
It's how you unite the world in friendly sportsman-like competition.
Well, I'm glad that the Olympics didn't go away then, so we can still have that. Now, he did make some correct predictions.
Oh.
Yeah. Here's a quote from John. This is my favorite one of his posts. Are you really surprised to find out that Iraq has nukes now? Or is that just BS to whip everyone up into accepting the next war? Now, this was posted before that was like mainstream, political opinion, which means that this fake internet time traveler was significantly more enlightened than the average politician at the time. He also made this post. He asked another user, care to share with me how you solved the overheating problem on your space plane? Now, he posted that in 2001, February 13th, which was before the Columbia space shuttle exploded. You gotta admit, that's a pretty good prediction.
Why would he call a space shuttle a space plane?
Well...
Did he generally talk in like a weird way?
Yes, all of his posts read like that. And now how he would explain away... Because, like, even in his own time, like obviously now we can say, okay, 2015, there was not a nuclear war. But he made, like, predictions that didn't come to pass even within his own time. And so he would explain them away by saying, well, maybe by traveling through time, I've created alternate timelines.
Like Dragon Ball.
Yes, like Dragon Ball. He basically said, like, Dragon Ball time travel rules may apply. And so there could have been a civil war and a nuclear blast in another world. But you guys aren't living in that world.
Well, now I believe him. I believe him fully.
You're on board now. People have drawn, like, parallels between this and, like, other sort of so-called alternate reality games, such as QAnon. Now, QAnon, like, people died in real life because of QAnon.
It was a pretty wild game.
That was a wild alternate reality game. But John Titor, it was fun for the whole family. I mean, he said he had a Corvette with a time machine in it. It's not like QAnon, okay? It was fun. People were posting on the Coast to Coast forums, asking him questions. I don't think that many people really thought it was real. I think it was more of just, people having a goof, having a gaff.
Damn, it's been years since I had a gaff.
The main parallel here that it made me think of was when QAnon was still going on, how they would explain away the predictions that didn't come to pass is QAnon would say, well, I have to post some fake things. I have to post some disinformation to throw people off my trail. And so that's how they would excuse everything away. So JT,
John Titor.
John. So Johnny would just say, well, it's in an alternate timeline. It's like Dragon Ball. And so that's how they sort of kept the thing going for so long.
Now, did he mention Dragon Ball by name? Did he have Goku as avatar, or are you just saying that?
Sadly, Dragon Ball was never mentioned by name, but that does remind me, there is an anime that's sort of inspired by this whole thing called Steins Gate. Have you seen that?
No, I know what you're talking about, but we can't talk about that. Now, can you tell us how Donald Trump relates to John Titor? Do you have information about that?
I do, but I'm saving that for the grand finale.
Damn, we're not there yet.
Oh no, there's so much more time travel to get through. You can't just jump to the future to get to the Trump part. But random people on the internet are not the only ones who have ever been interested in time travel. Our parent company, so to speak, the CIA, looked into time travel a little bit back in the day. And I can say this because it's been declassified now, so it's all out there. They were interested in something called the gateway process. Now, to explain what the gateway process is, I will read a quote from the now declassified CIA document, which is called Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. It says, fundamentally, the gateway experience, side note, its process experience is kind of interchangeable. Fundamentally, the gateway experience is a training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemispheres so as to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere so as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. So what was it really? Like, what does that mean?
That means you project your mind and you can do anything, go anywhere, go any when, and you're God.
Yes, but here's what it was in real life. You know, in Napoleon Dynamite, the scene where they test out the mail order time machine that Uncle Rico has bought, and Napoleon basically like shocks his balls, and then Uncle Rico comes in and says, "Well, I could have told you that." Remember that?
Yeah.
So that was basically a real thing you could buy back in the day. They would send you all these tapes and like these manuals for how to listen to, and you'd listen to the tapes, and it would play at like certain frequencies and like different ears, and it would allow you to achieve this like super advanced state of mind that would help you time travel. And to explain how it works, I'll read another quote from the declassified document. Thus, as the almost continuous click-out pattern establishes itself in continuous phase at speeds below Planck's distance, but before reaching the state of total rest, human consciousness passes through the looking glass of time space. Through the looking glass of time-space, after the fashion of Alice beginning her journey into Wonderland. As you can see, it sounds very scientific. Wonderland is mentioned, click-out patterns is mentioned, and the other parts are even more scientific. For instance, there's a part where it says, quote, time and space may become grainy or chunky. That's how you know this is serious science.
What does chunky feel like?
Chunky? I do not know what chunky space would feel like. Maybe like when it's really humid.
This kind of sounds like they're falling asleep to like a white noise machine and they're just dreaming. That's kind of just what they're describing.
It's like, damn, I just traveled through time. It's like one of the best like Simpsons lines ever, where Ralph's like, oh boy, sleep. That's where I'm a Viking. The CIA basically did that in real life. Here's what they wanted to do with it. This is another line from the article. Well, not the declassified document. The out-of-body state involves projection of a major portion of the energy pattern that represents human consciousness so that it may move either freely throughout the terrestrial sphere for purposes of information acquisition or into other dimensions outside of time-space, perhaps to interact with other forms of consciousness within the universe. So basically what they wanted is like, we could use this to talk to aliens. That could be cool. But more importantly, we can spy on those damn Russians with astral projection.
I feel like if you unlocked a real ass astral projection to travel through space and time, there are probably better things you could do besides spy on the Russians.
But it's really easy for me to picture like a guy, like some 1950s like CIA guy in like a suit and tie, and he's smoking, and he's like, yeah, whatever. Now how can we use this to fight the commies?
The men who stare at goats.
Yeah, like that's based on this. I mean, Stranger Things is basically based on the Gateway process specifically. It's been a while since I saw the first season, but doesn't 11 sort of astral project around?
Yeah, that's a big thing. Star Wars was based on this.
It was?
No.
Oh. Here's another line that gets more into the time travel aspect. However, the technique of time travel into the past involves further expansion of consciousness through the inclusion of additional levels of sound on the hemi-sync tapes. So basically, according to this, if you want to travel backwards in time, you're going to really have to turn up the volume on the cassette tape.
Crank it to 11.
Yeah. You're going to have to turn it way up if you want to go back in time.
Tear those $10,000 subwoofers you installed in your Chevy. You're going to have to hook them all up. You're going to have to really just blast yourself with them waves.
Now that's if you want to go back in time. This is about going forward in time. It says, the last and most advanced of all the focus states associated with the Gateway training program involves movement outside of the boundaries of time-space, as in Focus 15, but with attention to discovering the future rather than the past. The individual who has achieved this state has reached a truly advanced level. Except in unusual circumstances, it is probably not attainable except by those who have conditioned themselves through long application of meditation, or by those who have practiced long and hard through use of hemi-sync tapes for a period of months, if not years. So if you want to go to the future, it's not enough to just turn up the volume on the Walkman. You're going to have to meditate.
You're gonna have to deafen yourself with these hemi-sync tapes.
You're going to have to blast those hemi-sync tapes. You're going to have to meditate. You're going to have to do all this stuff.
If you don't require the use of a hearing aid after these hemi-sync tapes, then you're not ready to travel to the future.
I'm just imagining some like CIA guy in a suit, like wincing as he listens to this really loudly, and there's like higher ups in like military uniforms like watching him, like angrily, like turn it up more. Now is the part that you have been waiting for the whole time. Some of you listeners may be aware of this because this is the most recent time travel tale we're getting into here. This is from like 2017, is when this was kind of a thing. There are people who legitimately believe that Donald Trump is some sort of time traveler. This is because a man named Ingersoll Lockwood wrote a book in 1898. It's a children's book, and it's called The Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog Bulger. He also, a few years later, wrote a book called Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Now, these books are basically Alice in Wonderland knockoffs. There were a lot of like sort of knockoffs at the time. It inspired a lot of imitators. They're basically isekais, I believe is the anime term for this.
Height.
Yeah, so this is basically a Baron Trump isekai. And in the books, Baron Trump is from a wealthy family who lives on Fifth Avenue, just like the real Baron. And in the books, his mentor is a guy named Don.
No way.
Yeah, no, this is real. Who helps them find a magical portal to the Alice in Wonderland fantasy type place. And because of these coincidences, people have actually convinced themselves that this is real. Now, he also wrote a book called 1900, The Last President, in which an unpopular outsider candidate becomes president, and a mob of socialists and anarchists attacks his Fifth Avenue hotel where he's staying. Yeah, people were blown away by this, and they
I'm
actually
blown away
convinced
right now.
themselves.
I'm in the process of being blown away. This is crazy.
You're going native on me.
I go native every other episode. It should not surprise you.
So then we get from here to time travel, where this is also true. So Donald Trump's uncle, John Trump, was an engineer at MIT, and he was really hired by the government to decipher Tesla's notes, Nikola Tesla's notes when he died. And so people have said that clearly John Trump had the secret of time travel, and he gave it to Donald Trump. And then the conspiracy kind of starts to break down at this point, and it's not really clear what they think is happening. But I guess Donald Trump would have then gone back and written those books himself to leave clues for people in the future, and then he becomes president or something. Again, this is where it starts to...
And then he travels back to the future where they need him to solve the computer coding issue, so then he travels back in time again to the 2000s, and he is John Titor.
Which, I mean, it does kind of make sense. Like, if Donald Trump did travel back in time 20 years, he would go to Florida and post on the internet, because that's what he's doing right now.
That's like his number one hobby, besides golfing.
You're right. He actually is kind of like John Titor. I'm going native now. They're actually quite similar. But in order to learn more about this important and highly relevant conspiracy, I watched a video. This appears to be one of the more popular videos on the subject, which is by a man named Mr. MB333, who is a conspiracy YouTube man who I hope to get on this podcast at some point. But his profile picture on YouTube is clearly a selfie that he took in his car with sunglasses and a hat on. Now, he's Mr. MB he's not exactly Mr. Beast in terms of popularity. However, this video has 2 million views, and he has 600K subscribers. So this is genuinely something that people are interested in.
600K is a lot.
Yeah, he gets a lot of views on his stuff. So this isn't just like a total, he is a total crazy person. But he's not just some random guy with like 8 views who's not even coherent.
I mean, I thought that's what you were describing with the username and profile picture, but 600K subscribers, damn.
Yeah, and he has like a Patreon. Like, he's making money. Now, he pointed out a few other things from the books that the conspiracy people have, picked up on. The magical land that Baron travels to is called Goggle Land, which is just spelled like Google but with one O.
Gogol?
And the man who leads the tour of this so-called world within a world is called Long Thumbs.
Who knows what that means?
Long Thumbs, Future Trunks. What does that mean?
Long thumbs.
What does that tell you? I have no idea, but he highlights it in the video. He talks.
I thought you were gonna tell me. I didn't know you were actually asking.
No, I have no idea
because I can't think of who Long Thumbs is. I
don't know either. But really, what I learned from this video. So if you look up this thing about like Trump being a time traveler, what you're gonna get is articles, talking about it. Like, can you believe this crazy conspiracy? Haha. Like, haha, people think Trump is a time traveler. So I was starting to think that there was nobody who actually believed in the conspiracy. I was like, oh, this is like a joke thing that someone posted on 4chan. Like, you can see the, what's that website? Know Your Meme. Has like a Know Your Meme page. Like, okay, this is like a joke. But it is not a joke. The top comment on the video is, it has a ton of likes.
Is it Donald Trump?
It's just Donald Trump. It just says like big things.
True.
Just says like soon. No, it says, when you referenced a world within a world, what came to mind is the internet. Many people found this comment to be very insightful. Now, the other top comment says this. This is probably the best one. Excellent channel. I am amazed of the level of knowledge this man has. I'm new to this channel and I'm absolutely blown away with his skills. He must be some scientist or retired scientist of some sort. Amazing work, brother. Thanks. Now, for additional context, this whole video is just a screen capture of him flipping through a PDF of the book, Baron Trump's Fantastical Adventures or whatever. It's literally just him scrolling through a PDF and highlighting things where it says, like, goggle. And they say this guy's got to be a scientist or something.
A scientist or a retired scientist?
like, okay, maybe he's not a working scientist. I'll concede that. But at the very least, he is a retired scientist.
Kicking back, enjoying his 401k.
Oh, man. Okay, so the other big comment is this. It says, it just said, okay, it starts off, yes, period.
Yes.
So just full agreement, like, yep, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I have the books and gave my son a set. I also have 3 volumes of all the Q posts from J1 by Johnny Moontower. I wanted the hard copies in case the internet ever went down. By the way, ... there is a cyber blackout coming. I also have Bill Cooper's amazing book, Behold a Pale Horse. Get them while you still can. So this guy's basically saying, you need to go out and buy Baron Trump Goes to Wonderland now.
When was this comment posted?
I didn't, screenshot it. I'm looking at my notes.
I want to know when this internet blackout's going to happen.
Well, he didn't say. He's not very helpful in that regard.
Not a time traveler.
This guy's not a time traveler. But so basically, I read these comments. Well, mostly I read them because they're funny. But I read these comments to say that this is not a meme. There are people who actually think that in some way, maybe they don't literally think Donald Trump is a time traveler, but they genuinely believe that in some way, Donald Trump is like divining the future.
I mean, are we paid to defend Donald Trump? Because he seems kind of, they kind of seem to not like him in the current government. Are we being paid to do disinfo on this, or can we believe in the Donald Trump time travel?
For now, we are on the payroll of Joe Biden.
Okay.
You keep that in mind.
Well, then I am going to exercise my American right to believe that Donald Trump may or may not be a time traveler.
Now, if in 2024, if Trump gets elected, this will become a 100% pro-Trump podcast because we will be on the Trump payroll.
That'll be awesome if we were able to make the switch from center left to just hard right.
Well, okay, really, we're part of the intelligence apparatus. We're not connected to the president in all seriousness. So we really have a lot of freedom that's not connected to the executive branch.
I mean, we're kind of the fifth branch after media, of course.
Yeah, that being said, I do have a framed portrait of Joe Biden in my office, just like Skinner does in the X-Files.
I have a framed portrait of George Costanza. Not the Kramer. I have custom-made the Costanza.
Like the one where it's like the glamour shot of him on the couch?
Yeah, but it's kind of in anime style and fully nude.
For artistic reasons. He's an attractive man.
I remembered my question I was going to ask earlier, and I think it's time to ask it.
Let's hear it.
So time traveling. You know, the Earth and all of the all the celestial bodies in the universe, they are all moving away from each other and with each other. Our solar system is moving. You know where I'm going with this. If we're time traveling, how come if you go back in time, you're not just gonna end up back like, floating in space?
That is a good question. That's a good point. Any time travel machine would also have to be a physical traveler machine.
Exactly.
That leads into our final time travel tale here. Moving on from Donald Trump.
Unfortunately.
This is my personal favorite time traveler. Andrew Basiago. Have you ever heard of this man?
Maybe in another universe I have, but not in this one.
In this universe, Andrew Basiago is a lawyer from Washington State who ran for president in 2016. And his claim to fame and his reason for running for president was that as a child, he says that he was in a secret government program called Project Pegasus that he was volunteered for by his father. And Project Pegasus was about teleportation and time travel. So when he was a child, he would use something called a chronovisor, which is a very badass name and would have made a good code name as well. He would use the chronovisor to take trips back in time. And one of the places he would go was Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., April 14th, 1865. And he was sent there to find out who killed Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he was sent there to kill Abraham Lincoln, which would have been really funny. I think it's funny to imagine Abraham Lincoln getting assassinated by a child.
By a little kid from like the 80s.
Yeah, John Wilkes Booth just gets framed.
He has some sort of like quip like the kid in like Terminator. He's like, sayonara, Lincoln. But he also claims to have gone back, to have been sent back. He was not in control here. He was just like a guinea pig, essentially. But he was also sent back to the Gettysburg Address. And he has a black and white photograph that has a little kid in it of the Gettysburg Address. And he claims that it's him. Even though, unlike the time-traveling hipster and...
He's in period-specific clothing.
Yes, like very obviously.
What's the point of that?
I know. He should have put in more effort into this. Now, he also claims to have seen, not with the chronovisor, but on a film. He says that he was shown a film that was taken in the past of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And in this interview, it's like a 5-minute interview on YouTube that you can find. He also specifies that Jesus is white.
So I think what he's thinking of is back in like the 30s when they were making, movies. That they did have a movie of that. So,
and he's a little confused.
Yeah.
He saw Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ.
Oh my God, he's white.
Well, like he's not even that old. This guy's not even that old, is the thing.
I mean, mentally, he sounds pretty old.
And he's not even, like, what makes this interesting, like, it's difficult, like, when you see interviews with this guy, it's difficult to tell if he is delusional or if he is a troll. Because he's totally coherent. He does not seem crazy. Personally, I think he's probably just a troll. But he's not like some guy living at like the YMCA. He's like a successful lawyer. You can look him up on LinkedIn. But he also he also experimented with teleportation in Project Pegasus, and he says that he was teleported to Mars. And he has said that on Mars, the aliens do have. He has gone out of his way to say that they do have like division of the sexes. So the organisms that live on Mars, they have females and males, okay. Which raises the possibility of there being hot Martian waifus.
I mean, I'm counting on that for the future, but how did he survive on Mars?
He does. I mean, the point is he teleported there. I'm sure they had a spacesuit or whatever.
How did he get back?
He teleported back.
Okay.
It's Project Pegasus.
I don't know. I just feel like he should probably go into more detail about it.
I would have liked more detail as well. Now, he also said that Martians, they have basically Egyptian, like ancient Egyptian style architecture.
Everybody knows that. That's nothing new.
Yeah, that's obvious.
The Anunnaki.
He also said that, now, unlike some Anunnaki conspiracies, he said that the Martians are quite friendly and pose no threat to Earth or anything like that. So you have friendly Martian women, and he didn't say this, but they could be like really like hot.
He was a child, okay? Don't be weird.
Wait, I'm not saying he did anything with them. I'm saying human men could.
I'm saying you shouldn't expect a human child thrust into his top secret government Mars teleportation / time travel program to be able to tell if a Martian woman is hot. Maybe us with our weird overdeveloped fetishes might be able to think so, but you shouldn't expect that from some guy in the 70s or whatever.
Have you seen the movie Mars Needs Moms?
Yeah, it was really boring. It was bad. The movie sucked.
Wait. Why did you watch Mars Needs Moms?
I saw it in theaters.
You saw it in theater?
Yeah, I mean, we were kids when it came out.
Let's stay on topic here. I can't have you derailing this time travel.
You're the one who derailed it.
He seriously has said that he is not the only one who is in Project Pegasus. He said that Obama was in Project Pegasus when he was a kid, and his real name is Barry Soetoro, and that Barry Soetoro / Obama, that's what we know him as, was also sent to Mars. And when I read that, my first thought was, this would make a great show. Like, I would watch an animated show where a teen Obama is like traveling Mars and there's like Egyptian Martians. And I think instead of making like boring documentaries about NAFTA and like Chinese people running factories or whatever, Obama needs to have his production company make that as a show. Tell me you wouldn't watch that.
I would not watch that.
What? How can you say that?
I think it's pretty telling that as soon as Obama stopped being president, all he did was just take the bag from Netflix. I feel like if a kid was involved in teleportation / time travel trials, he would, president is one thing. I mean, that's pretty good. That's an expected outcome. But after that, just making boring Netflix documentaries, nah.
So what you're saying is that you don't believe Andrew Basiago.
It just sounds a little bit unbelievable.
Andrew has never produced any sort of evidence other than the random picture of a kid at the Gettysburg Address. He did not just go to Mars in the past. He also claims to have gone to the future. He says that he went to the year 2045, where he visited a building made of emerald and steel, and he was given a microfilm detailing future events that he brought back to the current day government.
Past current day or current day current day?
Past current day. And he does claim to have certain knowledge of the future, but it's very specific to presidential elections. For instance, he has said that he knows that he will be president or vice president in 2024 or 2028. That is a concrete prediction he has made. Now, when asked about Donald Trump in an interview, he said, "As for Donald J. Trump, I have a vague memory that my father took special note of Trump during an appearance by him on the Phil Donahue show. And he might have even commented that he was a future US president." So he's very vague on Trump. Now, if you want to tie this into the other conspiracy, it could be because Trump is himself a time traveler, and this is creating rifts in the time-space continuum that cannot be predicted.
Maybe. All right, hear me out on this one. This is gonna sound pretty nutty. But maybe Barack Obama is Donald Trump from this timeline, and that Donald Trump is a different Donald Trump who went back in time to live the life of current Donald Trump in this timeline, or maybe it's vice versa. What I'm trying to say is maybe Donald Trump is a Time Lord from Doctor Who, and one of his reincarnations is Barack Obama.
I do. Now, could the current Doctor actor is black? Could they have done that because your theory is true?
Maybe the current black Doctor actor is also Barack Obama, but younger, from another universe. You know what? Forget it. This is too much. This is more confusing than Primer.
Primer, don't even get me started on Primer. Andrew Basiago has also said, quote, it feels funny to like be quoting these people as if they're like notable figures. But anyway, my reliable memory is that my father identified Newt Gingrich as a future national leader, president, or vice president. So we can expect the huge comeback of Republican Newt Gingrich.
Sure. Why not?
He's gonna be back big time. So Andrew Basiago is gonna be president or vice president, and Newt Gingrich is gonna be president or vice president.
Now which what state is Andrew Basiago like senator or governor for right now?
He is a lawyer in Washington State.
He is currently a senator or representative of Washington State?
No, he's just a lawyer.
Oh, well then I fail to see how he's going to become president.
Well, hey, I mean, Donald Trump had never had any political experience, and he became president.
Because Donald Trump is a billionaire playboy superhero who's a time traveler, and also Barack Obama.
Here's what I'll say this about Andrew Basiago. I would vote for him over Donald Trump.
I'm voting for Kanye. We're both voting for Kanye.
I will not be voting for Kanye. I would vote for Andrew Basiago over Kanye any day of the week.
If it's a ranked choice voting system, what are you gonna do? Andrew, Kanye, then Trump, then Biden?
Now here's the funny thing about Andrew Basiago. As I've been saying all this, I'm sure you have all been imagining that Andrew Basiago is, of course, a right-wing nut job, because that is most conspiracy theorists, even if the conspiracy has nothing to do with anything that's inherently political, like time travel. There's nothing political about traveling through time. But surprisingly, his policies were fairly liberal. He was essentially a Democrat. The big things he wanted to do that were unrelated to time travel were he wanted to increase funding for education, and he wanted to increase funding for green energy projects. But his big thing that was more important than that, was he wanted to declassify all of Project Pegasus. So he wanted to declassify everything that the government knows about time travel, so that the public could be fully aware. And he has said that teleportation should be publicly available. So any citizen should be able to use teleportation. But time travel, while everyone should know about it, it should not be a secret. It should not just be something that is available to everyone like a car, because this would obviously create a lot of problems. He also wanted all former presidents who are still alive to come out and admit that they knew they were going to be president because of time travel. So he wanted basically Obama, Trump, Clinton, Bush,
JFK, Walt Disney,
JFK, all the presidents who are alive.
Take them out of cryo freeze.
They would basically have a press conference where they would come out and say, okay, yeah, like we were time traveling. I knew I was going to be president. Sorry, guys. And then everyone could be on the same page.
Are we supposed to are we supposed to put them in stocks and
No, there's no punishment. He just wants them to admit it.
Why?
Because it's the truth will set you free. So he also said that he would disclose all information about aliens. He's an alien believer. He has said that the government is in contact with aliens, and this is because aliens came down and started getting in touch with us after the nukes went off, because nukes create rifts in space-time, and the aliens disapprove of the use of nuclear weapons. And this is actually, his other stuff is pretty unique, pretty unique stuff that he made up. But this is a pretty common thing among alien believers. There's all sorts of alien tales about how, like, oh, an alien abducted me, and they told me we shouldn't use nukes anymore.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've like discussed this both on the podcast and off the podcast multiple times about how aliens will interfere if nukes are involved.
Yeah, that's their big symbol to come down. And I thought to finish this Basiago discussion, here's the final paragraph of the article I read on him on pinkplanchette.com that I just really liked. They wrote, while Basiago's claims seem outlandish, they don't appear to have been completely debunked yet. What does seem odd, though, is that there is absolutely no mention of Project Pegasus on the official DARPA website. A Google search of the term doesn't yield any reputably sourced information either. Nonetheless, Andrew Basiago hasn't strayed from his story. Its intricacy, as well as his standing as a lawyer and former U.S. presidential candidate, add somewhat to its believability. It's true that the government holds a lot of secrets. Could this be one of them? Or is all of this a delusion?
I'm going to go with number 2.
But I just love that that's the conclusion of the article. Now, this is the conclusion of the article I read from Gaia.com, which is a great website that will surely come up in future episodes. But they wrote, could Basiago really have time traveled throughout history via a clandestine government program called Project Pegasus? We may never know. But in today's political climate, there have been a number of unforeseen revelations and disclosures that might have seemed absurd in the past. If we vote Andy 2020, we may find out.
I think we're going to find out a lot of stuff if we vote Andy 2020.
You're right. We might do another episode on time travel in the future, because I found just so much great stuff about time travel. I love time travel. If I had a time machine, it wouldn't be fun. I don't want to kind of end on a downer note.
I think it depends on the type of time travel, like how it works. Because there's so many different types. There's Back to the Future time travel where you slowly fade away if something goes wrong. There's Dragon Ball time travel where you create a new universe. There's Primer time travel, which again we're not going to get into because it makes my head hurt. There's so many. My favorite one is Doctor Who time travel, where it literally does not matter. It just doesn't make sense and it doesn't have to. It's for the story.
Yeah, they really just have no rules.
They just go nuts.
Wrapping up here, we have an email now, and what this means is you can email us about time travel. If you are a time traveler, we would like to speak to you. We'd like to have you on the podcast. If there's anything else you'd like us to talk about on the show, you can email us. We've already received a couple interesting emails that we will be discussing on the show. We will be taking listener emails.
You can message us on the Twitter too, statsponconpod.com.
If you have a time machine, please let me use it. I will be removing my former middle school bully Derek from the timeline violently.
I went to middle school with you, and I don't remember a Derek, so I think you were successful already.
It worked. Tune in next week. Sponsored Conspiracy Podcast.
How do you say our Twitter? Statsponconpod. Statsponconpod. Say that 5 times fast. Go ahead, try.
Statsponconpod.
Statsponconpod. Statsponconpod.